Hello, within the framework of the draft legislative news on the Minister of Justice, we will introduce you to the brief content of the legislation adopted during the week. First of all, a resolution of the President on measures to further simplify the regulation of passenger carriage by road was adopted. According to the resolution, from May 15, 2021 until the end of 2022, an experiment will be carried out to simplify the regulation of activities for the carriage of passengers by road, wherein activities involving the carriage of passengers by light vehicles with no more than 4 seats, in addition to the driver's seat, are included in the list of activities that individual entrepreneurs can engage in. Activities related to the carriage of passengers by light vehicles are carried out by the individual entrepreneurs on the basis of the license card. A license card is issued to individual entrepreneurs who have reached the age of 21 and who have motor vehicles operated for no more than 10 years at the time of filling an application through the license information system. Individual entrepreneurs engaged in the carriage of passengers by road must undergo a technical inspection of the vehicle at service stations accredited by the State Unitary Enterprise Accreditation Center at least once every 6 months. Individual carriers must undergo a monthly medical examination at special checkpoints organized by business entities that provide interactive customer search services for passenger carriers aggregators. It is not allowed to hire employees by individual carriers to carry out activities for the carriage of passengers by road. Until September 1st, 2021, the state duty for the state registration of individual carriers is not charged. The state duty for the issuance of license card from individual carriers is charged once a year in a one-time amount of the base calculated value. At the same time, no fee is charged for the provision of public services. Individual carriers pay tax on income of individual at fixed rate, and the rate established for individual entrepreneurs engaged in the carriage of goods by road with a carrying capacity of up to 3 tons. Liner taxi belonging to legal entities are entitled to a stop for embarking and disembarking of passengers on the territory of the traffic sign "No Stopping", including in the territories adjacent to airports and train stations. Free entry for embarking and disembarking passengers to paid parking lots of airports, railway stations, bus stations, building materials markets, clothing markets, shopping malls run by local government authorities. Movement in a special line allocated for route vehicles. Our next document is the Act of Republic Uzbekistan on psychiatric care. According to the Act, voluntary consent of medical intervention with knowledge of information, psychiatric care, mental disorder, and number of other key concepts were introduced. This Act expands the rights of persons with mental disorders. In particular, they have the right to receive information about the nature of the mental disorder and the method of treatment available to them in an understandable, timely, and complete manner, and to remain in a psychiatric institution for inpatient treatment as long as necessary for the provision of psychiatric care. According to the Act, a psychiatric examination is carried out to determine whether the examined person has a mental disorder, the need for psychiatric help, and also to resolve the issue of this type of help. In addition, the circle of persons entitled to engage in psychiatric care is clearly defined. According to the him, medical workers with a special higher medical education, for example, psychiatrists, medical psychologists, and psychotherapists, have the right to engage in medical activities to provide psychiatric care. Next document is a government resolution on improving the procedure for a differentiated approach to setting prices for public services in the field of state cadastre. According to the him, the procedure for setting prices for state services in the field of the state real estate cadastre has been changed. In particular, the amount of payment for the state services for the registration of cadastral passports and registration of cadastral documents for non-residential buildings and real estate structures has been updated. The following prices were set depending on the total area of the property. Up to 100 square meters, 1 times the base calculation value. From 100 square meters to 1000 square meters, 1.15% of the base calculated value. From 1000 square meters to 5000 square meters, 17.25 times the base calculated value. From 5000 square meters to 15,000 square meters, 34.5 times the basic calculated value. From 15,000 square meters to 50,000 square meters, 57.5 times the base calculated value. More than 50,000 square meters, 80.5 times the base calculated value. Remind you, nowadays in the territory of the Republic of Uzbekistan, base calculated value 245,000 sums. Another important document is related to the Center for the Rehabilitation and Adaptation of Women. The resolution of President of the Republic of Uzbekistan on additional measures for the rehabilitation of women victims of violence was adopted. According to the resolution, the Republican Center for Rehabilitation and Adaptation of Victims of Violence and Prevention of Suicide was abolished. The Republican Center for Rehabilitation and Adaptation of Women and its regional branches have been established under the Ministry of Support of Mahalla and Family. The Republican Center and Territorial Center are legal entities in the form of the state institution headed by the director appointed by the Cabinet of Ministers on the proposal of Minister of Support of Mahalla and Family. The resolution also established 29 model centers for the rehabilitation and adaptation of women at the Republican, regional and district levels. One of the main tasks of the centers is to provide anonymous emergency medical, psychological, social, pedagogical, legal and other assistance to women who have suffered from the oppression and violence, who have committed suicide or are prone to suicide. The centers will women victims of violence and their minor children, women who have committed suicide or are prone to suicide. From June 1st, 2021, persons who have received a copy of the protection order are subject to preventive review, for example, subject to pressure and are violent or inclined to commit them. Measures will be taken to restore the lost biometric passports or identification cards of women and their minor children who apply to centers. A 24-hour hotline, the only short number in the country, will be created to provide psychological, psychotherapeutic, legal assistance, advice and information to women who become victims of harassment and violence. Thank you for your attention. With the full text of these documents, you can introduce with the news on the law through the website lex.uz and on the Telegram channel Huquqiy Axborot of the Minister of Justice.